To all of you. I am Mr. Shashikant B. Gosavi, Assistant Professor, Department of Civil Engineering, Walchand Institute of Technology, Solapur. I am presenting before you the online educational resource on India and WTO regulations. Here, WTO is to be read as World Trade Organization. The learning outcomes of this OER are at the end of this session. Students will be able to explain functions of World Trade Organization, Sustainable Development Goals and World Trade Organization, impact of World Trade Organization on agriculture of India, and recent agreements and issues of World Trade Organization in India. You can see a wonderful logo of World Trade Organization with Geneva office as its headquarters. It is an intergovernmental organization that regulates and facilitates international trade. Government use the organizations to establish, revise and enforce the rules that govern international trade. It commenced its operation on 1st January 1995. Today, the total number of states are 164 under its umbrella, and over 98% of the global trade and global gross domestic products are controlled by the World Trade Organization. What are the functions of World Trade Organizations? Administrating trade agreements, acting as a forum for trade negotiations, settling trade disputes, reviewing national trade policies, building the trade capacity of developing economies, and cooperating with other international organizations. World Trade Organization facilitates trade in goods, services, and intellectual property among participating countries. It provides framework for negotiating trade agreements which usually aim to reduce or eliminate tariffs, quotas, and other restrictions. Agreements are signed by respective governments and ratified by their legislators. One of the very important aspect of World Trade Organization functions is dispute resolution. Administrative independent dispute resolution for enforcing participants' adherence to the trade agreements and resolving trade related disputes is a major functions of World Trade Organization. It prohibits discrimination between trading partners, but provides exemptions for environmental protection, national security, and other important goals. India has been a member of World Trade Organization since January 1995 itself. Very important to understand the significance of Sustainable Development Goals, SDG Goal 10, which is to reduce inequality within and among countries. It is referenced by the World Trade Organization agreements as instruments of reducing inequality. So indirectly, this particular agreement is pursuing the Sustainable Development Goal number 10. Benefits of World Trade Organization: it facilitated free trade. These are not shared equally, and citing the outcomes of negotiations, and data showing a continually widening gap between rich and poor nations. This clearly indicates that World Trade Organization to some extent is not successful in bridging this particular gap. What are the impacts on India? All of us are very much aware that India is primarily an agricultural based country with majority of the population relying on either agriculture or agriculture associated industries. World Trade Organization ranks India 5th for commercial service exports and 6th for commercial service imports as in 2017-18. The World Trade Organization Agreement on Agriculture has both negative and positive impacts on agriculture of India. About 70% of Indian people depend on agriculture, so overall export-import of agriculture commodities are directly or indirectly depending upon World Trade Organization laws. What does it really happen? There is agreement on agriculture, popularly called as AOA. This deals with giving market access, reducing export subsidies, and government subsidies on agriculture products. Doha is a location where World Trade Organization conference was held in 2001. India emerged as the most outspoken of advocates for the developing bloc. Delegates of 142 countries agreed to a new round of trade talks, including topics such as environment, competition, and investment. As a developing country, India has played a significant role in voicing its own concerns and also of the entire developing world. There were primarily some of the agreements which we are focusing now. The agreement proposes tariff and non-tariff barriers reduction. That means an overall reduction of tariffs on manufactured products and phasing out of the quantitative restrictions over a period of time. The important implication that happened because of this agreement is that firms that have a competitive advantage would be able to survive in the long run. Another important agreement was trade-related investment measures, popularly called as TRIMS. This agreement forbids the host country to discriminate against investments from abroad vis-a-vis domestic investment. So there should not be any discrimination between these two investments. Agreements requires investment to be freely allowed by any nation. Third is trade-related intellectual property rights, very important, popularly called as TRIPS. Intellectual property rights to protect and provide legal recognition to the creator of the intangible illegal use of his creation or her creation. Patents, copyrights, geographical indications, trademarks, industrial circuits, designs, and trade secrets, all these come under the purview of intellectual property rights. These agreements stipulates basic homogeneity of law. Another important finding is India amended the Copyright Act, the Patents Act, and the Trade and Merchandise Act. The pharmaceutical and biotechnology industries got a hit because of this particular measure. There was an impact on India expected to be in the transfer of technology from abroad as well. Very important recent advancements or developments which have happened primarily can be identified as ban of Chinese mobile apps. Under the Modi regime, it was identified that very big lot of Chinese mobile apps were working in India, and those were found to be threats to our market, and therefore Modi regime banned Chinese mobile apps. The China raised its voice in the this particular forum of World Trade Organization. However, our defense is that we have never gone into any agreement with China regarding how should exactly be thoroughfare in terms of mobile apps. There are other issues such as related to peace clause on specifically subsidies on rice is one of the example on that. Rice is one of the important crop or grain which is produced in India, and India felt that we should have our own bin of stock available with us in case of the emergencies. While conventionally the World Trade Organization is actually banning these kind of practices. But then our right on our grain is what is a defense which is being pleaded by us, and the issue is still being debated in World Trade Organization. Information and communication technology is another thing, where in tariff cases there Japan and Taiwan has raised this issue in India regarding the import of their products in India. Fisheries subsidies is another thing about which many countries are raising voice against India in terms of its trade policies. There are many benefits to India. Since the WTO's establishment, India has benefited hugely, more than double its share of global exports in goods and services. India has created new jobs, and the WTO agreement has helped us in reducing poverty. Kindly give your reflection on following quiz. Which of the following is the biggest advantage of WTO membership of India? The answer is global exports. I have used the following references, including a Wikipedia file. Thank you very much. Wish you all the best.